Hey folks, just in here a little bit early. Anyway, my name is Eric Wilkinson with Pro Trader Strategies. We're an educational company. What we're here to do is to talk to you about the markets, maybe teach you a little bit about the economic data and how that impacts the markets. But ultimately what we want to do is talk about the trades that we can implement around any given assumption using options. And we aren't just saying like a bullish move that we're going out and buying calls. No, what we do is we look at these underlyings and find the optimal option strategy for any given assumption. And further, what we're going to do is really break down each individual option strategy in my webinars that I do on Thursdays right after the close. So if you want to learn about options and how to spot an option strategy for your given assumption, please check those out. It really will help you out. And finally, throughout this video, or actually not finally, but during this video, comment over there on the side. We are going to make sure you're clear of concept. I'll even circle back around to make sure that if you're watching this on the tape delay and you have questions, that those get answered as well. Now, please smash that like button. It really does help us out going forward. All right, in this video, let's talk about the economic data. Across the pond, we really didn't get a whole lot of economic data, and we kind of knew that. But here in the United States, we got JOLTS job openings, and that number has been pretty astronomical, coming off of those 10 million numbers that we've had, but still pretty close, coming in at 9,210,000 job openings, expected to be 930, slightly less than what was expected there, but still there's a lot of job openings out there for folks. Now, something to note, the tip economic optimism. This is how you and I feel about the overall economy. It's a survey of basically personal or the retail person, not institutional, but more the folks like you and I that are living in this economy. Well, that number came off a little bit and has continued to kind of slide here the last several months. Now, kind of like our other economic data points, anything above 50 is optimism. Anything below 50 is pessimism. So we have still an optimistic personal consumption or personal outlook on the economic outlook. So that is good. It's still positive, but people are starting to wane a little bit here. Also, we have the FOMC member meetings, and we also have Bostic speaking. That's right. So sorry about that. Meetings today, everybody's going to be really digging into the devil of the details. How did they change that statement going forward? So that's what people are going to be looking for. All right. Crude oil is coming off. Now, we've been seeing the strength in the dollar since basically mid-June and continue to seeing strength here. That should cause a little bit of weakness with crude oil. We're also seeing OPEC increase their production, albeit it's not very consistent. It's kind of like a whim. Like right now, what we're talking about, I think that they're going to start pumping out oil when they see these oil spikes and then kind of crimp back. So the mandate is for like a full quarter on the increase in production. They don't have to increase like say, 100,000 barrels today. It's basically over the course of the next 3 months that they have a quota that they can meet, and it's not daily dependent, if that makes any sense there. Also, gold futures, we're seeing actually gold futures coming off the highs today. Now we're seeing this strength in gold as I think people are more worried about inflation than the dollar. So normally what we see is gold start to move higher as we see the weakening dollar. Well, right now we're seeing a strong dollar and a strong gold market. Remember, GDX is something that I've been playing around with. That trade's working out quite nicely as the gold miners will follow the gold futures here. So strength there across the board. We're really starting to see weakness in the tech sector and the reopening trade, which is a bit bizarre here, folks, because normally what we've been seeing is more of a sector rotation. The tech is more in line with the stay-at-home trade, and the reopening trade is like the casinos. Now, I jumped on board with the casinos in that reopening trade because I've seen these casinos say that they are at capacity for the foreseeable future. Well, that means everybody is getting out. I'm here in Arizona where in the summer, it is usually really dead. I mean, going out on the interstate, going to a restaurant is easy during the summer. Not right now. Right now, if you want to go to a decent restaurant, you have a month wait for a reservation. Now, when I say a month wait, yes, you can go to dinner at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or you can go to dinner at about 10 o'clock in the evening. Now, those areas are open, but the times in between are booked solid, so it's very difficult. That means that's following in line with what I was talking about with these roaring 20s, people getting out and spending their money in the economy, just trying to get out and enjoy life. Now, if we're seeing that here in Arizona when it's usually really dead during the summer, then I think that the rest of the United States is probably seeing a lot of economic activity there. All right, NASDAQ, I pulled this up on the 15-minute chart. Usually it's a daily here. But what I wanted to zoom in on here is look at the opening of the day trade when the institutional traders are coming in. Now, we got a lot of retail traders trading overnight, but the day session, I always said, is really the key catalyst to directional moves here. And with the bearishness that we've seen off of this open, that is pretty indicative of a bearish trend throughout the day. There was no attempt really to flush the day session out other than this green candle right before I started going on. Now that gave me a little bit of pause early on where I was thinking maybe risk is to the upside, but this market is not confirming that bottom and still looking pretty weak here. So I'm going to go with the risk to the NASDAQ is to the downside today. Now we got the Dow Jones Industrial Average moving to the upside, right? That reopening trade maybe, or at least the blue chips that have been a bit of a lagger compared to the upward momentum that we've seen in the tech sector. And I've said this for the last several months, and it's going to be like I'm blue in the face by the time I'm done with this, folks. I don't think that we're really going to see any massive upside incremental moves in the equities for the remainder of the year. All right. I think we're going to see more of this jostling back and forth, the sector rotation out of some of these stocks that have had these massive runs into some of these other stocks, like in the Dow Jones that we're seeing here, that have really been kind of put on the back burner for right now. I think that they're going to start making some moves here. Now, E-mini S&Ps moving to the upside, again, just shy of the all-time highs that was created yesterday, But as you can see, we just came up shy of that during the day session. I think we're going to print that today. So risk to the E-mini S&Ps to the upside, Dow to the upside today. NASDAQ, I think we're going to continue to see some weakness here throughout the day. As a matter of fact, yesterday when we were talking here, I think Lola was on here, and she was asking about IBM. Now, I started flipping through a lot of these other ones and seeing a lot of similar situations here. Now, IBM is finding that bottom here. Lola, if you were looking at this yesterday, that candle looked pretty good, like I was talking about, finished up where the base of that is less than half of the entire length of this overall wick, or overall candle, I should say. What I'm talking about with this is this candle here. That is what we talked about yesterday. If we could finish up above that little area to make the wick look a little bit longer than the base, that's usually what you're looking for in a candle for a reversal of momentum there. And today, that confirmation. So I would be looking at IBM moving to the upside. Now, while we're seeing IBM start to make that move to the upside, I was looking at a couple of other ones that hadn't really made that move yet and probably are due for a bit of a correction. And NVIDIA fit that bill. So with NVIDIA, I played this to the downside. And as a matter of fact, we're doing this with this type of trade, swing trades, right? As a matter of fact, I'm going to use this in the webinar for a swing trade, because what happens here is I've got this swing trade setup right here at the top. I've got a candle that I'm always looking for, right? Something like a hangman doji like this, and then got the confirmation candle here. Now, if this were to finish at or near the highs of the day, it would still look like a topping pattern, because then I would have two of these dojis lined up next to each other, maybe one being a little bit higher. Even if this was a green candle at the top, those are starting to look like they're rolling over when you get those setups at the top of the move. As a matter of fact, heading into this, we've gotten a couple of clues where they weren't confirmed, but you can see that the market is really starting to lose some momentum there on those. And then today we've gotten that another candle with the confirmation today, making that confirmation. So I played this to the downside. As soon as we started seeing that weakness, I wanted to jump on board with this trade and went into a synthetic short. I'm going to talk about all the reasons when, where, and why I put this on. But really what I want to do is take advantage of a quick down move. Now, the areas that I'm looking for the first line of support is pretty, I'm going to redraw that because I think it's right around in there. It's lining up right around 780-ish. That's going to be the first one to look for. And then the next one is going to be about that 1715 area where I think we're going to come back down and find support there. So we're going to retest a couple of areas, but the first one to note is this 1780 area. That's going to be where I'm looking to have this target come down and at least touch. So with that said, in NVIDIA, I went in and went a little bit longer duration. You can see here that they do have earnings. So, I didn't want to play around with volatility coming in or out of this trade. We've got pretty high volatility already, but I don't want to see volatility start to come out, and I'm a little bit concerned about that earnings and how that's going to start affecting that pricing. So what I talk about in these webinars with especially the synthetic short stock, I don't have to borrow stock. I don't have to pay maintenance on it, all those things. As a matter of fact, the margin on a synthetic short is much less than going out there and shorting that stock. So that's why I like to use the options in this case. And I went out there into September and did the shorted the 830 calls and then bought the 830 puts in there. All right, that creates 100 deltas. Now, if you remember, when we're talking about deltas, if it is 100 deltas, that's equivalent to owning 100 of the underlying or shorting 100 of the underlying. So I've created a situation where I built this out where I am going to benefit dollar for dollar when this underlying moves down. So if we're looking at this, let's break this down again. So I did the September. Let me get my pen out. I did the September, and I did the, what was it, the 380, the 830 calls, dyslexia. All right, 830 calls. I sold the 830 calls, and then on the 830 puts, I bought them. All right, these were about, I think it was around 50. They were right around 50 deltas each. So calls are positive deltas, but I shorted them. So that means those are negative deltas. And I bought puts, which are negative deltas. So those are negative deltas. You add those together, and that's how we create that synthetic short, like it's equivalent to 100 of the underlying for every one contract you do. Because remember, options, every one lot option is equivalent to 100 of the underlying if you were to convert it to stock. But when we're talking about deltas, if I'm selling one contract, I have to look at those deltas because that for every dollar move in the underlying, my strategy or those calls are going to be affected by the same amount in the deltas. But when I'm selling a call and buying a put, you add those together and I have 100 negative deltas. That means when the dollar or the underlying moves down by $1, I benefit. Anyway, now I did this for a $5.80 debit. All right. Oops, sorry, debit. So what happens is, because I did this as a debit, I have to figure out where my break even is. So I take the 830 minus that $5.80, right, that I had to pay. And that basically gives me $824.20, right? So that's my break even on this trade. That is where I got short this underlying. So as a matter of fact, when I did this trade, the underlying was trading around $823 and some odd cents. So I was actually able to sell slightly higher than where the underlying was trading at the time of this trade. Now you can see the market has completely started sliding since then as well. And obviously a winner. I'm not trying to cherry pick this trade, but the fact of the matter is we're doing a webinar on swing trades and what the best strategy for that swing trade is And I think I found one here in the synthetic short. I'm going to really break this down. As a matter of fact, I've taken screenshots of everything I did this morning when I was going through this process. So you can follow along with that tomorrow if you want to check that out at protraderstrategies.com and sign up for that webinar. All right. So then we wanted to talk about, so I got IBM. I followed on with NVIDIA because we're seeing this broader market really start to see some weakness here on the, at least NVIDIA there. Now, something else to note, I wanted to talk about Facebook and is seeing some weakness here. Finally, Twitter, and there's one other social media, basically President Trump coming out and saying that he was going to sue them. They were stronger earlier this morning, but they are starting to see a little bit more weakness here. And then Amazon maybe looking at like a top. The reason why I wanted to talk about this, I'm going to keep an eye on it. We don't have a real good swing trade setup, but when we're looking at these candles, just like in the last example, look at that top. If we were to finish right here, right now, and then tomorrow, with these high flyers, especially something like Amazon, I'm going to wait for a confirmation. And then I would expect us to look to come back down and test this area at right around 35.60. Okay, so I'm going to wait for a confirmation on this, but we're seeing some weakness here in some of the tech sector, and there might be some opportunity in this sector rotation here. So taking a look at that as well, keeping my eye on Amazon, added NVIDIA. We talked about Facebook, Twitter, and those folks, and my NVIDIA trade. And that's about it. That's all I got for you guys. Like I said, please remember to hit that subscribe button and click on the bell so you get notifications when we're doing this. I'm not always doing these just for the daily market commentaries. If I see an opportunity later on the day, I might pop on here live. So if you guys want to check that out and follow along with these trades that I'm doing, when, where, and why, make sure you got that bell clicked on. Also, don't forget to comment. I'll circle back around to you folks, make sure everybody is clear of concept. And finally, smash that or take that. Bye for now and take care. Take it easy.